City, Spurs and Leeds midfielder Michael Brown is my guest today. Welcome along. Can't wait to get your thoughts about Manchester City in a moment. We're going to hear from him in just a moment, but we're going to start with the news that Casemiro is leaving Manchester United at the end of the season. It broke just a short time ago. This is what Casemiro's had to say as part of the club's confirmation statement. "I will carry Manchester United with me throughout my entire life. From the first day that I walked out at this beautiful stadium, I felt the passion of Old Trafford and the love that I now share with our supporters for this special club." He goes on to say, "It's not time to say goodbye. There are many more memories to create during the next 4 months. We still have a lot to fight for together. My complete focus will, as always, remain on giving my everything to help our club succeed." Goodness me. It's been a kind of a up and down spell, really, you'd have to say, for him, particularly over the last months and under Amarin and now under Michael Carrick. How will the fans look back at this time there? As a success or a mistake?
I don't think it was a mistake. I think he brings somebody with his, obviously, aura, ability, some things that he's won. I think just need that sort of something around the dressing room for the uncertainty for all the rest of the players. It's been so long now for Manchester United, the up and downs, the management change as well. Lots of scrutiny. He's had to take it as well, hasn't he? So he's just too old, he can't carry on. And he's just kept coming back, kept ticking over. And it's just been some big performances when needed. I mean, I think you look as an opposition going there and you're sort of saying, look at who it is, look who you're coming up against. So that's certainly been there. But it's an interesting day that we do it now for Manchester United. Why do we have to release that today? I think that's a strange one. But no, I think overall he will be missed. I think he's obviously coming to the end of his career and you've got to move on. And
he had such a positive game as well at the weekend. It's kind of like it's come off the back of a positivity. And maybe that's why, go out on a high as such. If you look at what he's won, an FA Cup and a League Cup, but does that feel underwhelming, do you think, given how his you mentioned his league form, how it's kind of suffered a little bit?
I think for him, that's just literally a little drop, isn't it, to what he's gone on and done and what he's won in his career. Serial winner. So for him, he'll, not just the Manchester United fans, but him personally, he'll have come to the club thinking that he could turn it around, that he could really get the experience ahead and to have some good players in and around him. And at times when you've seen, they've been overrun in the middle of the pitch. That'll be something that'll have hurt him, but he's had some joy. He's had some delivery from what he's been brought in at Manchester United to do. A lot of people will say the amount of money that's gone into him, but you can't just build it around one player. And you knew he was aging, you knew he was coming towards the end, and he needed more players around him.
He's had quite a tough time in the media, you'd have to say. I think Manchester United are scrutinised beyond belief. He will have known that when he joined them, but fair to say, probably more than most in that team. Do you think the media have been unfair at times?
I don't think it's just the media. I think the Manchester United supporters will say, why we're playing with Casemiro, we got Kobe Mainoo, he's the future. We have to really get him involved much more. But Bruno Fernandes, Harry Maguire, everybody at Manchester United have had to take it.
They certainly have. What's next for him then? Do you see another Premier League club, or do you see Europe more of an option for him?
The usual suspects will be saying, well, they're the US, Saudi Pro League, there'll be a financial one to go and have a little bit of an ending somewhere else. But would Manchester United, would they be sort of saying, can we get any involved? Can we have a reduced deal? We accept you won't play so much, but you're still massive experience, can give things to the players, and then go into the coaching side of it. I'm sure that'll have been looked at, but we don't know the manager, do we? We don't know what's coming next. I think it's heavily controlled by the new football people, and they'll probably say it is time to move on.
Do you think, just very briefly, do you think that might have been part of his thought process, the fact that it's all a little bit up in the air still?
Well, yeah, but again, he'll have said to Manchester United, "Do you want me? Do you want me to be part of it? Can I look at staying further on?" I think with the uncertainty all around, he was saying, "Well, what is next? Who can I go and work with? If I want to go and sort of be that older player where I play a little bit, but start to coach on a heavily reduced deal would normally be the case with somebody like him. He'll probably feel I can go and play somewhere else and just." With him, he's going to have options, isn't he? If it's Saudi Pro League or US, because of what he will bring straight away with the gravity of how and what he's done.
Yeah, he's got plenty of experience, hasn't he?
Hello, welcome back. Now, Liverpool have become the top-earning Premier League club for the first time, according to analysis from financial firm Deloitte. And our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, is here to tell us more about that. Good to see you, Kaveh. Liverpool, top British club for the very first time. What is the secret behind their rise up the table?
Well, they had a brilliant season on and off the pitch last year. They won the title, they were in the Champions League as well, and also commercially they've been doing really, really well. And commercial income for the first time has overtaken broadcast income as to where clubs are making most of their money. And commercially, Liverpool have been doing well. Their commercial revenue up 7% last year. And one of the reasons for that is because since Anfield has been redeveloped, it has become a venue for non-football events. For instance, we've seen Taylor Swift play at Anfield. Dua Lipa, I think, played there as well. And also Bruce Springsteen had some concerts there too. So not only have they been doing really well on the pitch, but they've been doing really well off the pitch as well. And also remember, they didn't play in the Club World Cup in the summer. If they'd played in the Club World Cup in the summer, they probably would have made, I don't know, an extra 80, 90 million pounds from that as well. So they would have been even higher in the list and even closer to the top four clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich and PSG.
Well, look, you mentioned those four clubs and you mentioned the Club World Cup, and I think that may well be part of the answer to my next question, because no English clubs in the top four. You mentioned those four European giants, which are. So what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a bit strange because normally, look, Real Madrid being top, that's not a surprise. I think, Manchester United were last top in 2017. Real Madrid have consistently been top. But it is strange not to have an English club in the top three. And I think the reasons for that now are that commercial revenue has overtaken broadcast revenue. And historically, of course, the Premier League is the richest league because it makes more money from broadcast revenues than any other league. But commercial revenues are even more important now. And you've got clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, PSG. Now, these are gold standard global brands. Yeah. And big companies want to be associated with Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG and Bayern Munich. Having said that, of course, as you mentioned, 3 out of 4 of them played in the Club World Cup as well, so they would probably have made an extra 70, 80, 90 million pounds from playing in that. And also they're playing in the expanded Champions League. So they're playing more games, making more money from match day revenue, broadcast revenue and commercial revenue as well.
For the first time in the 29 years that Deloitte have been publishing this list, Manchester United are in the lowest position they've been in those 29 years. I remember before the Europa League final last year, people saying this is a huge game for Tottenham because they've gone 17 years without a trophy. It's a huge game for Manchester United because financially they need to be in that Champions League. How worrying for Manchester United that they are as low as they are?
I mean, it is worrying when you see it because I think for the first sort of period when this list was being compiled, it's been going now for 29 years. In those glory years of Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson, when they were winning everything and commercially they were ahead of everyone else, they were consistently top. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom for United, because if you break down these figures, for instance, their match day income, even though they're not doing that well, nobody in the Premier League makes more money from hosting games than Manchester United. Their match day income is still £166 million last year. Commercial revenue, £346 million. Okay, Manchester City have overtaken them. Liverpool are getting very, very close to them as well. Their commercial revenue is kind of flatlining. But where they're really losing out is broadcast revenue. And the reason they're losing out on broadcast revenue, down about £40 million to £180 million, that is £100 million less than Arsenal, £100 million less than Manchester City, £100 million less than Liverpool. Why? Because they're not in the Champions League and also they weren't in the Club World Cup. I think what Manchester United need to do is just get back into the Champions League. I think when they get back into the Champions League, expanded format of this competition, their revenues will go up by about £100 million. That is why they're so focused under Michael Carrick now of finishing in the top 4 or the top 5, because I think 5th place will get an English side into the
And
Champions
you mentioned
League.
Manchester's match day revenue. There will only be 20 games played at Old Trafford this season.
Exactly. So I think next year they may fall even further in this money list because they're out of the League Cup, they're out of the FA Cup, they're not playing in Europe at all this season. I think they've taken a hit from their deal with Adidas as well. That has gone down because they're not in the Champions League. So I think next year they'll be even lower, but if they get back in the Champions League, I think the good times will be coming back to Manchester United, financially at least.
Off the pitch at least, exactly. Thanks, Cafe.
Mikel Arteta's work at Arsenal is being viewed in an even brighter light after the recent coaching shakeups elsewhere. With Chelsea parting ways with Enzo Maresca and Manchester United moving on from Ruben Amorim, the contrast is hard to miss. Arsenal has kept moving forward under Arteta, giving him time through difficult stretches, and now seeing the payoff as the club pushes again in the Premier League title race. It also raises a bigger question about strategy. While Chelsea and United are changing direction again, Arteta has been in place for more than 6 years, outlasting a long list of managers across those two clubs in that span. That stability has become part of the story, and it was a major talking point on the Seeing Red podcast with Tom Canton and John Cross. Beyond reacting to Amorim's dismissal and breaking down wins over Aston Villa and Bournemouth, plus Manchester City's loss to Chelsea, the conversation kept returning to one core idea: structure. Not just who is the coach, but how much power that coach has, and whether the club is built to support a long-term project. Cross pointed to Arsenal as a rare example of patience turning into real strength. He argued that Arsenal's willingness to back Arteta through the messy early phases helped create the stable position they're in now, and that this kind of time and support investment is what can turn a club into something truly solid. Canton's response was sharp and honest. Arteta's arc, he said, has almost become a problem for other clubs, because it tempts them to keep coaches they probably shouldn't. But at the same time, it's still the best example of what can happen when you hire the right person and actually give them time. And that time wasn't smooth. The discussion highlighted how Arsenal could easily have pulled the plug early. 2 eighth-place finishes, then 5th, missing out on the Champions League, and a Europa League semi-final exit to Unai Emery's Villarreal. Any of those moments could have pushed a club into panic mode. Instead, the argument is that Arsenal recognized the bigger reality. Arteta didn't have the resources to compete at the required level right away. The squad needed a rebuild. The roster needed to be refreshed. That's where the comparison to Chelsea and United becomes even more pointed. The podcast suggested that recruitment and decision-making structure are often what determine whether a coach survives. If signings don't land, results suffer. And if a coach doesn't have enough influence, or the club isn't aligned behind a clear plan, it becomes much easier for things to collapse. In other words, giving time only works if the coach is empowered to shape the team in a way that matches the vision. Cross also emphasized that Arteta's situation stood out because he pushed to be a true manager, not just a head coach. The idea is simple. Top coaches want a real say in the build, and they want the club to match what they were promised when they took the job. The discussion even pointed to how Arteta survived a low moment, like the home loss to Burnley, because the club stayed behind him. And in that period, with fan pressure affected by the COVID-era environment, Arsenal were able to hold their nerve instead of reacting emotionally. Meanwhile, the big unknowns now shift back to Chelsea and Manchester United. Who replaces Amorim? And how will the next chapter look at Chelsea? The answers may come sooner than people expect. But for Arsenal, the reality stays the same. They're stable, they're moving forward, and they're still in the title chase, while others are starting over again. And that contrast can shape how people judge every manager in the league. Because when two massive clubs hit the reset button again, it forces the same question Cross raised on the show. Is the quick switch actually fixing the problem, or just delaying the real work? The bigger takeaway from the discussion is that time isn't a magic solution by itself. It only becomes valuable when the club's structure supports the plan, and when the coach has the influence to push the squad in the direction he believes it needs to go. That's why the distinction between head coach and manager kept coming up. The podcast point is that if a coach is expected to own the results, he usually wants a meaningful say in the decisions that shape those results. And if he doesn't get that, patience alone won't save him. That's also where Arteta's early struggles get reframed. Those finishes and setbacks could have become a reason to panic. Instead, they became evidence of why alignment matters, because Arsenal chose to treat them as part of a build, not a final verdict. And once the squad was reshaped the way the club believed it needed to be, the results started to reflect that long-term approach. So the repercussions aren't just about Arsenal looking stable, it's about how stability changes your margin for error. When you don't reset every year, you're not constantly starting from zero. You're building on decisions, learning from setbacks, and keeping a clearer identity. For Chelsea and Manchester United, the immediate consequence is obvious. They're changing direction again, which means the next appointment carries even more weight. Because every new coach isn't just judged on results. He's judged on whether the club is finally giving him the structure and authority that the role demands. That's why the question at the end matters so much. Who will replace Amorim, and how will Liam Rosenior do at Chelsea? Because those answers will test the exact theme the show kept returning to. Time, support, structure, and control. And for Arsenal, it's a different kind of pressure. Stability doesn't guarantee trophies, but it does keep you in the fight longer. And right now, while others restart, Arsenal get to stay focused on what they're already doing, chasing the Premier League title.